I don't think we talk enough about like what to do when you have a high revenue month.
Let's talk about it.
Like, right? People get really excited.
Mm-hmm.
I made $50,000. I'm like, okay, what do you make around the other months of this year, right? And like those months look like 10, 12, 15. So like the $50,000 month may have been, it's like a spike. But I want you to treat that high revenue month like you would treat like a 10K month or a 12K month. Because what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to save for the future. It's going to allow you to get ahead with your expenses. It allows you to get ahead with like paying yourself and having money set aside. Like when you think about what happened this last year with the pandemic and business owners like trying to figure out where their next paycheck was coming from because they're, responsible for paying themselves. Well, if they have business reserves, how much could their business reserves kind of help them?
You're listening to the Black to Business podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall.
Welcome back. I'm so excited about today's episode. Wait, I know I say that about every episode, but I really am excited about today's episode because if you're in business, today's topic is something I'm sure we've all stressed about, are currently stressing about, or are about to be stressing about, and that's money. And I'm totally kidding on the about to be stressing about part because today's episode is just in time to save you. It's all about how to manage your business finances and stress less about money. So we all know the benefits of properly managing money, but do we always get it right? Absolutely not. And when you don't get it right, it can be stressful, especially in business. Failing to properly manage your business finances can lead to all sorts of issues like late payments, running out of money, and not collecting money that is owed to your business. All big no-nos. So if you're struggling and stressing with any of these, today's episode is definitely for you. Joining me today on the podcast is financial coach and founder of Wealth Over Now, Keina Newell. In this conversation, we're discussing some money management tips to keep your business running smoothly, like how to monitor your spending and create a budget for your business, how to separate your business and personal funds, and things to know before borrowing money for your business, and so much more. So I don't want to give it all away, so let's dive into it. So Keina, thank you so much for being on the show today. We are excited about today's topic, so welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So before we get started, I always like to ask my guests, if you could just share a little bit about who you are and what is it that you do in your business and how did you get where you are today?
Great. So my name is Keina, and I am a financial coach. I like to say that I help people create new possibilities with money and make money fun. I think we all love money, and we need to have a better relationship with our finances. But I got here not in any type of linear way, but just reviewing my own money story of being in student loan debt. Realizing how someone gave me thousands of dollars worth of debt in college, but then I actually ended up doing Teach for America when I graduated college and was trying to figure out how do you pay back $70,000+ of loans, but you're making about $30,000 a year. Like the math just didn't seem right, and I had to learn how to really budget really well and manage my finances well to accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish, like buying a home. Saving for retirement, some of these cornerstone moments that we all are looking to achieve. And it's been about 3 years ago now that I decided to pivot. I was in education up until that point. And the thing that I really loved being in education was the coaching piece, being able to hold space. At that time, it was for teachers to be able to grow and change. And if I could do anything for free, it would be helping people with their finances because I see
nice.
I see it's not free, but
yeah.
But as I see it, the thing that all of my clients and the people that I work with, I would say your listeners too, it's not that like you can't enter in some data into a spreadsheet or something of that nature, but money is very emotional. And so for me as a coach, it's very important for clients to have this transformational experience that allows them to shift the way they think about their finances. And so if we can shift the way that you think about money, it ultimately is going to change your relationship with money, but also not only impact you, but impact those around you. And like really thinking about like the generational impact of you getting your finances in order.
Love that. And Keina, I know one of the things, well, of many things, you are very much knowledgeable in solopreneurs and helping people save, pay off debt. And today we're going to talk about how to manage your business finances and stress less about money. So I think that when we think about business, we also have to think about personal. So I wonder if you could just discuss the importance of money management in both personal and business.
Yeah, I think the thing that comes to mind, because I had a conversation today where we started to talk about expensive hobbies. And I think I see a lot of solopreneurs that are running expensive hobbies. And I say that because like we don't have a handle on what's the role and the purpose of money within my business. I want people to understand that money has purpose. It has purpose in your business. It has purpose in your personal life. If you've gone into business for yourself, you've probably gone into business, one, because there was something that you desired some result you wanted to create in the world, but you also wanted your business to have some type of like financial stability. And so really, I think the importance one is that you understand like how much does your business need to take care of itself? And then how much does your business need to also like take care of you? And when I say take care of you, I think about like paying like a paycheck out to yourself, because I don't want you to be, I don't want you having a business where like you're a $0 employee. And at times, right, when you start, that might be true that you're not paying yourself, but you can do that with intention. I don't want business owners to be out there not paying themselves because they're spending all of the money in their business, and they also don't have a really good understanding of how much they need to be paying themselves because they understand their personal finances.
Yeah, and you know, when you say that, I think about just people's knowledge around financing and just money in general. I think sometimes, especially in our space of helping Black entrepreneurs, it's limited knowledge and resource and access to this information. So why do you think that that's the case? And I guess understanding and managing finances in terms of like the limited amount of information and knowledge that there is out there.
I think we don't have enough conversations about money. That's one of I would say like a tenet in my business is to encourage people to have money conversations. And whether that's like talking to your other friends that are also entrepreneurs about finances, if that's, you know, getting into different circles where people may not look like us, but you can ear hustle and learn some things, right? But it's being able to start those conversations because people are doing creative things with their finances. And so you can keep telling yourself like, oh, I was never taught in school. My parents weren't good with money. Like you can continue to live under that money story. Or you can also choose to say, I'm going to start asking questions about like, oh, you know, how did you start up your business? How did you get funding for this? Or, you know, how do you make sure that you pay yourself every 2 weeks? But really just thinking about like, what results do you desire to create? What conversations can you start? Because ultimately, I think the power in a money conversation is that you're going to go in being curious and you can learn different things. I think on the personal side, you may learn something about, you know, refinancing your mortgage or buying a house. And on the business side, you might find out where there's actually free money that you could be using to actually build your business.
I love that. And so when you say, I know you said earlier about some people have expensive hobbies. So what advice would you give to someone who is maybe they're working their job and they're also running their side business? Like, you know, you also talk about investing in yourself. So what does that look like, the smart way to do that, and how people should start to look at that versus just blowing all of their money on their business?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is like actually sit down. Like when I think about when I first started my business, it was like, I just hope I make money, right? And maybe somebody wants what I have to offer. So I think that there's at that point, when you're kind of investing in your business, you may take some leaps that don't seem logical financially. Like I think about paying $6,000 for a business coach when I probably had barely made $6,000 in my business. That was an intentional decision on my part because I knew that this coach was going to help me really be able to create the business model that I desired. And so one of my benchmarkers was to say, like, my goal in the next 6 months is to make this money back. But when you're looking at your business finances, I would say like in the kind of like startup, the first year to like 2 years to 3 years is really sitting down and getting really clear on what are your business expenses. We say yes to a lot of things as entrepreneurs, like, oh, I'm going to sign up for this $100 program, or I'm going to, sign up for this $97 course. I got $10 over here at Canva. I have G Suite, right? And we have all of these things that the money in our business is obligated to pay for, or you're even financing it on the personal side of things. But I would say sit down, actually like write down what are your expenses, what are your annual expenses, things that maybe you don't pay for all the time. What are the things that you're paying for monthly? Also consider the things that you want to invest in your business or things that may be like a little irregular. And what I want that to do is to create like basically a budget for your business where you can say, okay, on average, I'm spending about $1,000 a month in my business. And now you have something to be able to say, like, am I generating $1,000 a month in my business? If I'm not, then like at a minimum level, like maybe that's my first income goal. If I desire to also pay myself and be able to save for taxes and build business savings, right? Like maybe I double the fact that like, oh, let me actually hit $2,000 a month, knowing that $1,000 would be for my expenses and the other $1,000 would be for like savings, tax, and compensation. So just really, like I said, getting clear on what does it actually cost to run your business from month to month.
I love that. And when you talk about allocating the money, and I also hear people talk about a lot about profiting first. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know I have some friends in business who are looking to take the leap and they are not more so like generating the income that they want in their business. But like you said, they're projecting that they will. So one, your thoughts on profiting first, but then two, on people who are listening who are like, okay, I'm going to take the leap soon, but they know they're not financially ready.
Yeah. I mean, I went through this. And so for me, I had a minimum that I wanted to be making, like an average that I wanted to be making in my business before I actually like left my full-time job. So I left in January for my full-time job. And I think I was averaging at the time, probably like 12K months. In addition to all last year, while I was like building trust with myself that I could like generate and hit 12K months continually, what I was doing in terms of like when going back to this allocation piece is I was putting money into an account that would serve to pay me when I wanted to take the leap. And so I think that like that's a safe way to think about, like, before I actually take the leap, let me see if I can pay myself. And you just pay yourself into an account. So designate whatever that paycheck looks like for you and your numbers. Let's say it's $2,000 a month. Can you afford to pay yourself $1,000 on the 10th and the 20th of each month, right? Or the 15th and the 30th, whatever your designated pay dates would be. What that allows for you as you're thinking about an entrepreneur that's like looking to take the leap is that on the business side, you have generated a runway or a buffer for you to have a salary when you go to actually be full-time employed for yourself. Where it protects you on the personal side is that, like on the personal side, hopefully you have an emergency fund already, but what that prevents is that emergency fund gets to stay on the personal side for a personal emergency, and you're not having to dip into that to actually like be full-time in your business. So for me, that's like the security I wanted to say yes to, knowing like I'm ready to take this risk, and having 3 months of like business expenses saved and set to the side allowed me also not to be in a hustle mode. Because sometimes when I say hustle, I'm not thinking of like creativity in terms of hustle, but more so like you're grasping at different clients. You're not allowed to say no to people because you're in such need of money. And so nobody wants to be in that place in business where you can't be selective, because all money isn't good money.
Right. That is true. And I want to take a little shift and talk about, because I know you work with different clients and things like that. When it comes to the mistakes that you see people make when it comes to their business finances, why do you think it's so easy for people to get into debt, and how can people avoid this?
I feel like people look at business money like it's monopoly money. I think there's just like a different mindset. I have to check myself on this, because I'm like, that's like, it's still real money, right? Or even be like, there's a culture right now on social media as well, like when you're talking about debt, where people are like trying to get their tax bill to zero, which I think they go and spend a lot of money in their business, which then draws down their profit, right? And so they may be spending money that they don't actually have, which equates to debt, but they see it as like, oh, but now I'm not going to have to pay taxes. So just even, I think it's the mindset piece, whether it's like, this isn't real money, or I'm not trying to pay the government anything. For me, I just save for taxes in my business, and I'm thankful I can pay taxes in my business, because it means that I'm doing something right. I'm profitable, and that I'm making money. So I would say just caution, what are the things putting you into debt? And I have different thoughts about business debt, because I've gone into debt in my business, but I've been very thoughtful about like, what are my things that I'm willing to go into debt for? And so do they have a return on investment? And if they do have a return on investment, what's the expected return on investment, and how am I going to monitor that so I can also pay that debt off?
And what happens for, like, how do you deal with, I'm guessing someone out there is listening that may not be able to meet that goal and that deadline of like, okay, I'm going to return this back, I'm going to pay this back. Like, how do you deal with that mentally? Like, I took this bet on my business and now it's not generating what I thought. So how do you deal with that, like, mentally, I guess?
I think you have to coach yourself on, what are you making that debt mean, right? And I would say also go back to your expenses and look at like, where could you be more lean in your business to reallocate some of that money to pay off that debt. So that debt doesn't need to be like a dark cloud over your head, but how can you be strategic? Or even thinking about, like, depending on what type of business, I'm a service-based business owner. So there might be a strategic point in which I raise my rates, and I would raise my rates and be able to funnel that money somewhere else. But then I also would say, like, for that business owner, it's like, what did you learn by getting into that level of debt that you feel like, ooh, I can't pay that back? But how do you want that to inform how you manage your finances moving forward? Maybe you open a new account where it's just for making business investments, and you take 5 to 10% of everything, all of your revenue, and you put it into that account. So the next time that you want to say yes to investment, you have that money. And as you're thinking about that right now, while you still have the debt, you could even take that 5 to 10% and be putting it towards the debt. So I think there's creative ways to also just re-engineer how you think about the numbers in your business.
Love that. And one of the things that made me think of is also, when you spoke about earlier, is, those expenses that we have in our business. And I think it's about also even further on smart spending, because there have been times when certain tools, business tools, when you got to cut spending, you think about, how can I use this multiple ways? And sometimes we don't always think about, how can I explore this platform or tool further and cut this other tool that I'm using?
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I've definitely learned in my business.
And I think it's good, like, quarterly to go through your expenses and do an audit. What do I want to keep? What do I want to revisit? And what do I want to cancel? Because you can be gun-ho about something in the beginning, right? Like, yep, I'm going to and then you don't use it. And here's the thing is that I think we say, like, oh, it's only $10. It's only $15, right? But if that's not how you actually want to use your money, then that's $10, $15 that you don't want to go in that direction. And so $15 for 12 months, that's $180. How else would you desire to use that money?
Yeah. And I think about 1 year, I think it was now I look more in the Black Friday deals. I'm like, okay, I'll wait till Black Friday comes around, Cyber Monday or whatever, and get this tool. But there have been times when I've gotten a tool, I'm like, I got that deal, but I never used it. So definitely like that quarterly audit.
And I do a lot of mindset coaching for myself, and it comes through in my coaching as well. I always check in with myself before I make investments. If you find that you're making an investment because you're like looking for a quick fix, it's probably not a good investment. Like I think of a program that I had that I was like, if I could just learn how to use Pinterest, I would make a lot of money in my business. Right. I never watched the Pinterest program that I bought. So like I essentially wasted money. And so just knowing like when you're choosing to invest in certain things, what are you actually trying to fix in your business? Do you already have the tools to fix whatever you're trying to resolve in your business? Do you actually need to check in with like your thoughts that you have about whatever circumstance is going in your business, where it's like revenue or whatever that is that you feel like is a hurdle from you being successful? And then the last thing that I will say about that kind of relates to like debt and investing is also like think back to, you know, what investments have you made in your business that were like your hell yes investments? Like I would make that investment 10 times over again. And then what were your kind of like hell no investments? And I think that helps give you a filter for when you do go and make decisions later on for those Black Friday deals, et cetera, right? It looks really good. Right. But if you know, like, oh, programs never really work for me, so I'm probably not going to invest in this program, even though this person's done a really great job of selling it. I just know that that's not a sound investment for me as a business owner.
Agreed. So let's discuss the culture of borrowing money for your business. And what do you consider and what do you advise people consider or know before getting into the process of like borrowing money, whether it be like bank loans or just different things in terms of like borrowing money on credit cards? So what are some things that you think people should consider and know?
I think really think about what's the cost of borrowing, and not necessarily like the interest, but if you're going to go take out $25,000, think about what's your plan to pay that money back. What does that look like? If you think about like kind of forecasting your cash flow, what percentage of your income are you really going to set aside so you can pay that investment back? And I think also aligning that when we just talked about that hell no, hell yes kind of investment, what this thing that you're getting ready to borrow money for, does that make sense? Like I said, I have many different thoughts when it comes to like business debt. I think that sometimes you do borrow money because it's going to help you make more money, but just having a sound plan in terms of thinking about how you're going to actually pay that money back. And maybe it looks like I'm going to sign an extra client every single month, right? But just mentally processing through what that plan looks like, because they're going to give you money and you are going to have a bill that's due every single month that you need to pay back. Like I have a client right now who wants to take out a business loan. And I'm like, all right, well, we got to make sure that we ask the right questions in terms of how much is this loan payment going to be every month, and how does that impact how we may reallocate how you're currently spending money in your business. So we really are trying to look at all the pros and cons and the unintended consequences before we say yes to this investment.
Yeah. And Keina, would you say, or when would you say is the right time to consider, borrowing or maybe getting a loan or getting a business credit card? Now, is it, I just started my business, I'm going to put everything on there, or is it like we need to have some skin in the game and then start the process?
I feel like it looks different for everyone.
Okay.
Right. Because like I knew that I was good with money before I had a business credit card. And I definitely put things on credit card, and I was paying for them out of my personal expenses. So I think some people would say, Keina, that's not what you're supposed to do. I did it. I was fine.
Yes, right. Okay.
But I think that like you also like just checking like for proof of concept, right, of your business first. Like if you're in the like baby stages, probably investing, and I'm thinking specifically about like service-based businesses right now, saying yes to like a $50,000 or $100,000 investment or coaching program probably isn't going to be a sound investment and something that you should say yes to, because you probably don't have a proof of concept and you don't even know like the people that you're speaking to, right? And so I would just be thinking about like make your first like $15,000, $30,000 and then really reassess. Where am I? What is my revenue history before you really start taking out debt in your business?
Good advice. And that makes me think to ask about someone who is listening. Any tips on, preparing to get a business loan? What are some things that people should be looking at in terms of, how to build business credit, and then also maybe applying for a business credit card?
Yeah, I would say like definitely have some type of like, I use QuickBooks in my business.
Mm-hmm.
And so making sure you have like this accounting bookkeeping software, so you actually have proof of your cash flow in your business and what's happening on a month-to-month basis. So if you have to provide any documentation on that part, that you are set to have like sound financial records. In addition to, like, I know initially when I applied for a business credit card, they use my social security number. Yes, I had an EIN for my business, but also just making sure your personal credit is also healthy.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is about personal credit and how that affects your business track record.
Mm-hmm.
So you're making sure that you have some good old personal credit. And then what do you say to people in terms of like different ways that they may not have thought of in terms of like borrowing money or some non-traditional ways to get funding for their business?
I think there are a lot more companies that are looking to fund Black businesses and just looking for like just doing a Google search in terms of like capital. I'm probably going to get it wrong. I want to say there's a group called I Enrich Her, if I'm not mistaken. The letter I, Enrich Her. And so like I know that they do funding for Black business owners. And I want to say it's predominantly women business owners. And so like looking through those types of avenues where maybe your interest rate isn't as high, or, the funding looks a little bit different. Excuse me, I'm not 100% knowledgeable. I just remember going to a conference where she was at, and you could basically pitch your business and then people could raise their hand to say, yes, we want to invest in whatever offer. I think like tapping into like local things as well. Like I think about organizations like SCORE. I live in DC, and I think there's a lot of different cohorts here for new business owners that might just have like a $5,000 grant, $1,000 grant, but like just looking towards like what community organizations are there that might be able to help you get started. And the thing that you're looking for, maybe initially you're kind of thinking about wanting to do some business coaching. Is there an organization like SCORE that you maybe want to tap into, that you don't need to actually tap into the money first, but you could tap into like the intellectual knowledge and the intellectual property before you go to take out a loan?
Right. And is that program the one, I think it's Renee Blewett, I want to say?
It's not Renee Blewett.
Okay.
I'd have to look it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So definitely we'll put those in the show notes. And I want to talk about, so we're talking about how to manage your business finances, and people stress less about money when they know and are knowledgeable. So I want to talk about creating budgets and sticking to them. What are some tools that people can use to help them create a budget for their business and just stay on top of their finances as far as a bird's eye view of things?
Yeah. So I think there's several tools. I always ask like people, I have a freedom and flexibility plan for business owners that just takes you through like, hey, what are your expenses? Which I don't think we do as business owners. We just swipe, pray for the best, all of our money is in one account. And so really being able to take stock of like, what are you spending money on? Because also what's true for business owners is there is a lot of like annual expenses. Like I think about the cost of like my website hosting, and it's like $400 a year.
Yeah.
And it's not one of those things that's like, not that $400 a year is a lot of money, but if you're someone who's managing your business income from month to month, and you're not remembering that in September your website hosting renews and it's $400, in addition to your G Suite renews and your Active Campaign renews, and everything is like $300 to $200, and you only have $1,000 in your business account, that can be alarming. So I always, like I said, suggest that people really sit down and think about like, what are my expenses? What have I spent in the last year? What do I know is coming up, to get a really good handle on how much your business costs you per month. You can use a software like YNAB even, which I know people oftentimes use that for personal budgeting, but you can also use it in your business, because I like to go under the like assumption that every single dollar should have a name. And when I look at my business account, I don't want to see $10,000 in there and think like, I have $10,000. I want to know the purpose of that $10,000, because there's always an expense coming up, whether it's quarterly taxes or, your $10 Canva investment per month. So with You Need a Budget, if that's like a tool you wanted to use, it would link to your bank account and help you be very proactive with your finances and not reactive. So you can say, I have $10,000, but I'm saving for that website hosting. I'm saving for the G Suite. Look, my business is also contributing to my SEP IRA, which is something that we don't talk about. Like, and I would insert that here, that like, I don't want people to have businesses that aren't fully taking care of them. If you're leaving your employer, you're also leaving your retirement, and thinking about like, how am I making sure that I'm taking care of that thing that my employer did for me, healthcare, retirement, right? So like, you can be saving for all of those things as you think about your budgeting holistically and giving the money within your business purpose.
Yes, I was over here like, amen to those big purchases that come out annually. And I got stuck with that one year. And it's like, now I have a bookkeeper, but for myself, I'm like, let me put all of these little expenses in my Google Calendar, because I do not want to be caught slipping.
But the bookkeeper isn't the one. The bookkeeping doesn't help though. What helps is if I know, so what I do, let me use a good number here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say there's an annual expense that's $120. I'm going to save $10 a month. Because when I save $10 a month towards that thing, then when it comes out, it's not a thought, because I've already been preparing for it.
Right.
It's the same that we should be doing on our personal side. Like, I'm saving for Christmas because it comes. I need $1,200. So I'm going to save $100 a month. So when Christmas comes, I'm not negotiating my November paychecks. I already have the money, and it's set aside for Christmas. So it's the same, like there's so much connected to personal, like if you can manage your personal finances well, you can translate that to managing your business finances well. And it's being able to prepare for these things. Like, or now right? Like G Suite comes every single year. I shouldn't be caught off guard by G Suite. Like, it should be a very few things that catch you off guard. And ask yourself that question. Is there an expense that like caught me off guard this year or in the last like quarter that I wasn't prepared for? How can I plan for that moving forward? Like, I want your expenses to feel very like flatlined. Like if you were at the hospital, someone would say you were dead. That's how I want your expenses to feel. Like even keel. It's not how you want to be in the hospital, but that's how I want I want you to know, like I said, that's why I speak in averages, because if you think about, oh yeah, my business takes like $5,000 on average to run. Some months that might be 2, some months that might be 3, some months it might be 8. But if you're always setting aside $5,000 for expenses, it lets you cover the ebbs and flows of that business without feeling stressed about it.
Right.
Love that. I love it. And one of the things you mentioned, you touched on a little, but I want to explore further is planning for the future of your finances as your business grows. Because like you said, you're creating this business to also take care of you. So what are some things that, like you mentioned, people don't talk about enough, like the SEP IRAs, that we should be discussing, like when it comes to taxes, payroll, health benefits, and all of those things?
I don't think we talk enough about like what to do when you have a high revenue month.
Let's talk about it.
Like, right? People get really excited.
Mm-hmm.
I made $50,000. I'm like, okay, what do you make around the other months of this year, right? And like those months look like 10, 12, 15. So like the $50,000 month may have been, it's like a spike. But I want you to treat that high revenue month like you would treat like a 10K month or a 12K month. Because what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to save for the future. It's going to allow you to get ahead with your expenses. It allows you to get ahead with like paying yourself and having money set aside. Like when you think about what happened this last year with the pandemic and business owners like trying to figure out where their next paycheck was coming from because they're, responsible for paying themselves. Well, if they have business reserves, how much could their business reserves have helped them during that time? And thinking, like I said, what do you do when you have a higher than average month? Because that higher than average month helps you when you have a lower than average month. It helps you if you're a business owner that's like, oh, I want to be able to take 2 months off, Well, the way that you can take 2 months off is like when you have those higher months, you're saving to think about those other months because you still want to be able to pay yourself. You still want to be able to pay the expenses in your business. Like those things don't stop happening just because you decide to take off work.
Yes. And then about people, people are listening and they're at different stages in their business in terms of like finances. But I think about one of the things we really push is that, setting that proper foundation. So for people who are listening that are thinking, I don't have enough money to worry about that. I didn't think, but I should start putting these processes and plans in place so that when the time comes. Now, is there a recommended percentage that you recommend people take off of their profit or, set aside for their business so they can already start practicing this?
So I follow a loose like profit first structure, which I think is a good book, actually on Audible. I prefer it on Audible. But in my business, I have one account that all of my cash comes through. So when my customers pay me, all of my cash comes into this account. And that account flows to a compensation account, a tax account, a savings account, and my expense account. I've done numbers for my business. So like, he has like an allocation, like he gives suggested percentages. I would say like, you still want to like run numbers for your own business. But the thing that I've done is to look at like, okay, if you looked at the last 6 months or you looked at the last year on average, what were you bringing in? And this is speaking to people that are like actually making money in their business. And so if you think about like on average what you're bringing in, also find on average what are you spending each month in your business. So let's say, for instance, you're spending $5,000 a month in your business. On average, you're making $10,000 a month. So 50% of what you bring in is basically expenses, right? From there, you'd want to be thinking about, okay, well, maybe you start saving 1% of everything that you bring in. You could set aside like 15 to 20% for taxes. And then what's left over of that, you could like put into your compensation account. Granted, all of these percentages, I'm just like making up numbers right now, guys, but they could change. But you want to be thinking about like dabbling with those percentages. Like if, say, for instance, you realize, wow, I'm spending 50% of what I make on expenses. That's not what I actually desire to be doing. I want to reduce my expenses, right? I want to get that down to closer. I would say like, especially in a service-based business, if you can get that down to at least like 30%, because you should be fairly lean, then that leaves 70% that you get to play around with where you can say, I want to pay myself 40%. I want to be able to, set aside 20% for taxes. And now I can look, I'm like doing math in my head. I'm like, how many percentages is that? But then you have this other amount that you can actually use towards savings. And so what I do is that anytime like money comes into my account, which I only try to touch that like cash flow account maybe twice in the month, but I run it through an allocation calculator for my business. And I say, okay, 40% is going to compensation, 30% is going to expenses, 20% is going to taxes, and the rest is going to profit. And so that allows me to have a business that's like stable in terms of I do the same thing with my money, whether I have a 10K month, a 5K month, or a 25K month. I do the same thing. And what that creates is reserves in my business. I have a set amount that I pay myself. So you will see if you were to log into my account, you'd be like, you have more money in your compensation account. I don't drain that. I pay myself a set salary on the 15th and the 30th, and it comes over into my personal account. But to answer your question about people that are just starting in their business, I would say like set up some resemblance of that. Even if you're like, dang, I need to pull from my personal paycheck account because I want to like invest in this thing. It still comes back to the fact that you're intentionally making that decision, right? And I'm intentionally choosing to reinvest what I would be paying myself at this time because I'm feeding my business, which is a lot different than you just like spending all of the money in your business and not knowing where it goes. If you build the habit of saving for taxes and you realize that, your first year you had a loss, guess what? That's a bonus. The government didn't need it. And so now you have choices. And so I think that like whatever you practice early on in your business is what you will maintain.
Great advice. And I want to ask about affording. So people being able to afford to add additional things. So maybe it's now I want to set up for a new hire. How do you know if you can afford that?
Open an account and see if you can pay that person for 3 months before you actually hire them.
And 3 months, guys, 3 months.
And I mean, like 3 months minimum. I would probably say 6 is really good. But yeah, like, can I afford to pay somebody $2,000 a month and not need to dip into those funds?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so how can business owners or individuals know when it's time for them to get help with money management? So what are some of the signs that they're doing poorly?
Well, here's the thing is like, you don't have to actually be doing poorly to get help.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a misconception, right? Like, I want to get help because I want to set up strong systems in my business.
Love it. Love it. And so what should that process be like in terms of like knowing, okay, I'm looking into, for example, your business to help me with that. What are some of the questions that they want to ask to make sure that it's a good fit?
Yeah, I would say for me, like if you have a fear of money, and just like you feel like I'm making a lot of money, but I don't know where it's going, you're my people. Or like those are my main people. It's like I want to have a positive relationship with my money and I want to be able to have ease with my finances. And if you're not experiencing that ease, then I'm your person. Because we're really going to work on that money mindset piece and also put some systems in place. But then also like expand what you think about in terms of like money management. Because I think you should have a numbers team. You need an accountant. For some people in the beginning, it's just going to be an accountant that you can trust to do your taxes, right? For other people, it's going to be like you have a CFO. And then for, like you said, you hired a bookkeeper. And in the beginning, for some people, it might be like, I'm actually just going to hire this one person to help me set up my QuickBooks. So I actually know what this language is inside of QuickBooks. But then eventually it might be like, oh yeah, that's something that I'm going to outsource because it's not something that that's not how I desire to spend my time from week to week.
Love it. And just any recommendations on tools that people can use that can help them? I know you mentioned QuickBooks. Any other tools that people can help?
Yeah, I would say use QuickBooks. YNAB is another good one. You Need a Budget is what it's called. You can use that for personal or business finances. I actually recently heard about a bank. I have not used it myself, but it's called Relay, RELAY. And if you are a business owner that wants to open up multiple accounts without the fees, that's a great option. I've heard it from two different people that I trust financially. It syncs really well with QuickBooks, and I don't believe in paying for your money to be managed by a bank. I shouldn't even say it's being managed, it's being held. And then they're charging you $10 to $15 a month, Bank of America, Chases of the world, etc., if you don't have like a minimum balance in your account. So definitely pay attention to that if you're a business owner. I personally use a credit union to manage my business finances because there's lower fees or no fees, I should say. And then I really love the book Profit First, and just thinking about like, how can I set up strong financial systems within my business and make my business like financially responsible for itself, but then also build a business that actually pays me and doesn't, just, I take money out of my business when my account is running a little bit low. We want to get out of that mindset.
Yes. And Keina, are there any favorite tools that have been helpful for you in business as far as your entrepreneurial journey that you cannot live without?
Any tools that I can't live without? I would say all my friends that I talk to.
Shout out to the friends.
No, I would say, honestly, my favorite tool is actually self-coaching. And really being able to sit with my thoughts about my business, my thoughts about my clients, and where I'm going. I work with a business coach who always talks about like, your thoughts create your results. And so I would say like mindset coaching has been the thing that I will always, always, always spend money on.
Love it. And I want to ask some fire round questions. So what TV show do you wish still aired?
Oh, a TV show that I wish still aired. Dang, I feel like I want the lineup back from like TGIF. That was good when I was a kid.
Okay.
Like I could get a good Family Matters. And
yes. Agreed on that one. And what's the randomest? Well, what's your favorite social media?
Hold on, I want to go back because yesterday was Oprah's like 35th. It was like the 35th year since she started the show. Okay. And I was having feelings about like, dang, we don't have like talk shows like we used to do. Like I remember like being a quote unquote grown up and coming home and be like, I get to watch Oprah at 4 o'clock. And now I don't even know who's on at 4 o'clock, but I'm not watching it.
You don't watch Wendy Williams? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but like, Oprah, I feel like that was classic. It was great.
Yeah. Now that you say that, I'm mad I never got to be on the favorite things. I always felt like I was going to get a chance and never got on.
Yeah, I used to write Oprah like constantly because I wanted her to help me throw my dad a retirement party. I had a lot of letterhead that came back from her. Like, thank you so much for your letter.
That is so funny. Oh my God. I love it. And what is your favorite social media platform?
Oh, goodness. I hate social media.
Oh,
I show up the most on Instagram.
Okay, so we got something. You show up on Instagram. What's the randomest account that you follow on there?
Oh, I don't know.
No.
What's probably really, really bad? It's not even random. Like, I feel like because I have 0 kids. But I have things that come up in my feed that are about like kids and parenting. I'm like, I don't have any children. Why are these things showing up in my feed?
Oh, the algorithm. It is creepy. It is very much creepy.
Yes.
So, and then I want to ask, what advice would you give to an entrepreneur in their first year of business?
Keep going. The journey is not linear. And you like believe in yourself even when nobody else wants to believe in you.
Love it. And speaking of believing in yourself, what's the greatest risk that you've taken for yourself in your business?
I quit my full-time job.
Ooh, and it felt, how did it feel?
I mean, it was liberating, but also scary at the same time. I don't know if you guys could catch this in this interview. I'm very type A. And so I wanted things to be like in place to leave my job. Like, something that was really important to me is that like I was able to contribute to my retirement because I don't want to leave money on the table when I think about what could be happening from compound interest. So Yes, I had a lot of calculated algorithms of what would make the best move and like when could I leave. But I think that's definitely the scariest thing that I've done. And sometimes I don't think I take us like a moment to really think about the fact that I own a home. I have a car payment. Like, I don't have baby bills, like I can't go work at McDonald's living in DC and expect to pay my mortgage.
Right.
Happen. So, just to be able, like, and honestly, I have to like say from like a faith and Christian perspective, like God has all ordained this, but just to be really grateful that like, wow, I can pay my bills and do more than pay my bills every single month. And I haven't missed a beat since I left my job.
I love asking this question because the answers are just so amazing. And I think it's inspiring to hear your story and for people who are listening to just keep pushing. And, we have examples like you. So that's amazing. And I'm glad that you shared that.
Yeah, I think I can't remember in the beginning part of my business, I remember her telling me that it was going to take like 5 years, I think, to really like feel very like financially secure. And I remember at the time being like, 5 years? Ain't nobody got 5 years. It's a long time. And like my first year in business, which wasn't even a whole first year, but it was like from 2018, like July of 2018. I think I made like $1,500 in my business. I was just so excited. Like, somebody paid me. This is amazing. Like, somebody paid me money to talk to them about budgeting. And then in 2019, I made maybe about 16,000. And last year I had my first like 6-figure year. And so I say like keep going, because just like at a bank, there's like this compound interest. There's like compound results with what you're doing. If you feel like you're meeting people and you're like, nobody's paying attention to me, like people are listening, and people are watching. I have plenty of lurkers. There are people that show up in my inbox that I'm like, who are you? They're like, yeah, I've been following you probably like for a year. And yep, I'm ready to work with you. And so you just don't know. Just keep showing up and serving your people, because they're out there. You just like don't put a timestamp. Like, if this is something that you truly desire, then when you think about 3 years, 5 years, that's a insignificant number of days if you're looking for this to be your life's work.
Such a gem, such a lesson. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Keina, what does it mean for you to be Black in business?
Oh, everything. I mean, I think about like because I was in education and my kids, I'm still very much connected to the kids that I taught. Like, I'm the example of what's possible for them, which is always really important to me, for them to see people that look like them doing things that they hadn't imagined that people could do. And the same is true. I have a slew of nieces and nephews, to be an example for them of what's possible.
Yes to the slew of nieces and nephews.
You said what?
I said yes to the slew of nieces and nephews.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them. I'm like, y'all, there's so many of you.
I think they're communicating with the algorithm.
Yes.
Love it. So how can people connect with you, find you? How can they work with you? How can they support you?
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm at Wealth Over Now. Also, I have a podcast where I have candid money conversations with my clients, and that's called Wealth Over Now Money File. So wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find those stories if you're like, let me see if this girl really knows what she's talking about, or just want to be encouraged. I think it's, like I said, I love to encourage people to talk about their finances. And so it's an opportunity for my clients to celebrate the work that we've done together, but also just encourage other people to talk about money. And if you are interested in working with me, go to my website and you can book a call with me.
Love that. And we're definitely going to put all of those things in the show notes. But Keina, thank you so much for being on the show, for giving us such valuable knowledge, and we really appreciate you. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Of course. So everyone listening, until next time.
Wasn't that such an awesome conversation? I told you it was going to be great. And I really love that Keina broke down the importance of a cash reserve and how to create different buckets for things like taxes, payroll, business expenses, and even paying yourself. One of the things that were key that Keina mentioned is that it's important to start thinking about these things early on. Even if you aren't making a ton of money, start creating healthy habits now. One of the things I enjoy most about us being able to create these episodes is that we get to the nitty-gritty because we truly want you to win in your business. You won't know everything, so give yourself some grace. But when you do know, start taking the first steps to correct it. Thank you so much for listening, family. And you can check out the full show notes and resources mentioned during this episode at blacktobusiness.com/67. And if you want to know how you can support us, all we ask is that if you can take a few minutes to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's totally free and we so appreciate it. Chat with you next week.